right, so the Dallas Cowboys. This is a team that's fun to talk about for me, just because I'm from Texas. I've never really been a Cowboys fan. Ever since I paid attention to football, they really weren't very good. I probably really didn't start paying attention to football until 2000, 2001, 2002. Doug Flutie, I think, was the quarterback for the Cowboys. They weren't very good. Um, and not until the Romo era did the Cowboys really become somewhat relevant to me. So I was never, pulled or wanted to be a Cowboys fan, or because they were winning. That none of that was really going on when I was a kid. So it was really hard for me to imagine, as growing up in that era, how this was America's team, and why there's so many Cowboys fans. But as recent years have showed me, and how easy it is to get under Cowboy fans' skin. It's very funny, just where they're going right now, and I don't really like the direction that they're going. Now, I think their defense is improving. I like their defense a lot. The draft picks that they had this last year were really good. They've been drafting over the last couple of years pretty good. They're retaining some of the talent that they've drafted well. DeMarcus Lawrence. So I feel like the main issue with this team, and they had to address it this offseason, was the main thing was Dak. Wide receiver depth honestly was a big concern. I thought Dak, I thought Dez was a pretty good player, but was he worth the money that he was going to be getting paid this next summer? And I don't think he was. So I think the Cowboys made a tough decision, but I think it was the right one to go ahead and let Dez go. And I think that's the one thing I think everybody's pretty much in agreement at Cowboy Nation, is that it was the right thing to go ahead and let Dez go. As much as Dez has been a focal part of the team for multiple years, this last season he really wasn't that great. And you could tell that the Cowboys were missing a number one wide receiver type player. Now, Dez is a number one wide receiver. He could go to the Eagles. He could go to the Redskins, Giants. I personally think he might end up in New England with Tom. So I think that I don't know. Dez could be a really good player from here on, but he was comfortable in Dallas. And I think it was time for him to get a new scenery, to kind of wake up and to kind of say, okay, things ain't just so sweet as I thought they were. And I think this is a good wake-up call for his career. And I think if the Cowboys would have just stuck with him, we would have had to continue the stagnant, Prescott and Dez going, back and forth. Dez dropped a lot of Prescott's balls last year. When I thought 2 years ago, when I watched Dak, when he really came on, Cole Beasley was his favorite target. They went ahead and traded Ryan Switzer, who plays slot just like Beasley does this last year. So this last summer. So I think that was a good decision, because Ryan Switzer has value and he could be playing at this point at slot. But because you have Cole Beasley, you're able to go ahead and let him go. Now, Allen Hurns, I think Allen Hurns was a good ad, but my player evaluation tells me that Allen Hurns is at best a number 2 wide receiver. So Allen Hurns, to me, his ceiling can only be so high. So I think it was a good ad in a year where you're losing. Terrence Williams has not really ever been what he was projected to be. He got into some trouble this last offseason. I don't really know where his head's at, and I've never really been a fan of Terrence Williams. He's had some good games every once in a while, but to me, I've never really been sold on Terrence Williams as a really good wide receiver. I felt like he was a guy that honestly was on this team because they didn't have a lot of depth, and I think he's a guy that will continue to fall back down the depth chart with all these other guys here. Now, Tavon Austin, I think Tavon Austin could be a good player for Dallas. Now, he's going to be playing, he's kind of a slot type guy, which we already have Beasley. Beasley's and Prescott's chemistry is good. So I don't really see where Tavon, gets into the offense, maybe as a punt returner, kick returner type. But we'll see if he gets some wide receiving opportunities. The guy I'm really excited about, though, is Michael Gallup. I think Michael Gallup's going to be a really good player for this team. I think he's going to be that number 1 receiver. And maybe not this first year. There's going to be growing pains into the NFL. But I think Michael Gallup, I think when the Cowboys saw who they had in the draft, and they saw that they could go and they could get Gallup after getting is that right? Did they get him before, or did they get him after? Yeah, they got him after Vander Esch and Connor Williams, so they were able to get him a little bit later, not go after him as one of those top guys, and they were still able to get a pretty good wide receiver. This is a guy that I was really excited about last year, had a pretty good game, had good film against Alabama, had really good film against Colorado. He played at Colorado State. Gallup was a good player all of last year in college, and I think he's going to be a good player for the Cowboys. Give him a little bit of time. Things that we know about the Cowboys: his offensive line is going to be good, or is going to be better than it was last year. Connor Williams is slated as a starting guard. Tyrone Smith is back. Hopefully he can stay healthy. And then Frederick and Martin are there as well. Lael Collins, who they stole in a draft a couple years ago, is slated as the starting right tackle. So I think the offensive line is going to be really good. I think Zeke's going to have a really big year. I think, tight end wise, I think they should have added somebody in the draft. Witten retired late, and that might have hurt. But I think they should have gone after a guy here in the draft. I mean, they went after Dalton Schultz. We'll see if Dalton Schultz can, come onto the scene. Rico Gathers they have, who's a basketball player from Baylor who hasn't really panned out yet. He's a physical talent, though. But the main concern for me with this Cowboys team, I think the defense is getting better. I think the offense is where it's at. I think what holds it back is Dak Prescott. Now, you say, what? Dak Prescott, he played pretty good last year when Zeke was out. But I just think, to me as a team, you use your mistakes from your past and you build on it to get better in the future. And I feel like the Cowboys are doing the exact same thing that they've always done. A quarterback that can get it done in the regular season but can't get it done in the playoffs. You saw firsthand, Dak. I mean, and I'm not saying he hasn't ever shown that he can't get it done in the playoffs. To me, when I look at Dak, he just does not seem like the type of guy that can get it done in the playoffs. So I guess I'm kind of judging him before he's gotten an opportunity. But my thing is why would you not get a quarterback that looks like he can go after and get it in those big game moments? Dak, if we run the ball 40, 50 times a game and Dak has to throw it maybe 10 to 15 times and our defense plays good, yes, Dak's going to look good. Yes, the Cowboys are going to win. But what about those days when the run game isn't going? What about those days when the defense is not working? Can Dak step the fuck up with this receiving core, and can he get it done? And that's just something I don't know. Witten's gone, and Witten was one of the biggest security blankets in the league. He knew exactly where he needed to be. He had that option route. I don't know if you've seen the videos that he's talked about this summer. An option route, one of his favorite routes that he had. And he had the option to go outside or come inside. It was something that killed defenses throughout his career. And so I don't really know. Defensively, I think the Cowboys, like I said, have improved pretty well. Retaining DeMarcus Lawrence. Sean Lee has stayed healthy last year. Leighton Vander Esch, this guy out of Boise State, really, really excited about him. I think he's going to be a huge, huge player in the league. I thought the Cowboys did a really good job going after him when they did. This is a guy that when you watch film of him, he was getting a tackle every play. He was there every play. Jalen Smith, maybe he can come. Maybe he's ready after the knee injury. He's been playing the last couple of years. Maybe he'll be at full speed this year. He's got a couple of years of playing under him. And you talk about their secondary. The secondary is definitely their weak point of their defense, but I think it's improving. Jordan Lewis out of Michigan a couple years ago. Chobi Awusu from Colorado a couple years ago. Xavier Woods had an all right year last year. And then Jeff Heath. Jeff Heath can't cover for shit, but Jeff Heath, he'll hit the shit out of you. This offseason, adding Tavon Austin, Coney Ely, Cameron Fleming, Hearns, Marcus Martin, Alawali from Oakland. He's a fullback. And then Deontay Thomas, another wide receiver I didn't really talk about. I'm not excited about him. I'm not really, not big on him. Dez is gone. Jonathan Cooper, Byron Bell, James Hanna, Anthony Hitchens, Orlando Stanrick, and Witten, all guys that are gone. So tough there. Draft-wise, I was pretty happy with the draft. I thought the Cowboys had a really good draft, like I mentioned, Vander Esch. And then Connor Williams. I think Connor Williams is going to be a good player. I think he's going to be comfortable here at home in Texas. Gallup, and Dorrance Armstrong, defensive end out of Kansas. This kid's film was pretty good. I liked him. Dalton Schultz, tight end out of Stanford, real smart tight end. And then Mike White. This is probably my favorite pick of the Cowboys. The Cowboys, those first three picks that he had, Gallup, Williams, and Vander Esch, was really good picks. top-notch picks. But my favorite pick of the draft, and this goes to what I'm saying about Dak and me not thinking Dak is the guy. I say give it 2 years. Now, this is a hot take, but give it 2 years. This kid Mike White out of Western Kentucky, he, I think, is the answer for the Cowboys. And I know that sounds crazy. You're like, who is this kid? Western Kentucky. This kid's about 6'5", 224. And he knows how to run an offense. He knows I watched some stuff on him this last year in the offseason. He knows how he knows how to read defenses. He knows when safeties are doing this. He knows what he's doing out there. And I just think Dak is going to implode in the next 2 years. Give it 2 years. Give it 2 years, and Dak will show his true colors that he's not an elite quarterback in the NFL. And he hasn't done that yet, so we can't do that to him. But I'm just saying, give it 2 years. Mike White comes onto the scene, and I think the Cowboys are actually where the Cowboys fans have been dreaming about for so long whenever Mike White comes onto the scene. And that's a hot take, but I like Mike White a lot. He's a guy that he wasn't talked about like those 6-7 other quarterbacks, but to me, he should have been talked about in that category with his size, his arm strength, his ability to read defenses. And he's a pretty veteran guy. He played at Western Kentucky for 3 to 4 years. So I really am high on the Mike White kid, and I think that he's going to be the answer for the Cowboys in the near future. Chris Covington, Cedric Wilson, a wide receiver out of Boise State, which is pretty good. And then Bo Scarborough, running back out of Alabama. Got him late. I think that was a good pick. I feel like he was a top 10 to 15 running back, and you're able to get him in the 7th round. You know, maybe because, he went to Alabama. Usually the Alabama running backs don't pan out that way because they have such a good offensive line. So we'll see what happens. But he's in Dallas, so he's going to have a good offensive line. Some of the team needs I talked about this last summer. Let's see if they addressed any of them. Now a scat back. Okay, didn't really add a scat back. I mean, you don't really need a scat back because you have Zeke. I just didn't really feel like there was a lot of things that this team necessarily needed. So I thought a scat back might be a good add, which they don't really have, but that's okay because they have Zeke, and Zeke does it all. O-line depth, they drafted O-line. They added some O-line, so that was good. Wide receiver depth, they added a little bit, but they lost Dez, which was tough. A veteran quarterback for Dak. I thought Dak needed somebody behind him to kind of steer him in the right direction, kind of give it, how Mark Sanchez was when he was there a couple years ago. They didn't really do that. The backup's Cooper Rush. Addressed the defensive line, re-signed DeMarcus Lawrence. They did that, and they addressed the line pretty well. David Irving's coming back, even though he has a suspension. Re-sign or draft linebackers. They did that. Sean Lee's back. Vander Esch is someone that they drafted. Good there. A veteran for the young secondary. Now, one thing they didn't do is they didn't really add a veteran for the secondary. Jeff Heath is probably the most veteran player in the secondary, and that's 5 years. But so I think that they didn't add any veteran for the secondary. Something that I think it wasn't a bad loss because Standrick is always hurt or he really doesn't pan out. But him leaving, I think, is just tough on the secondary from a veteran standpoint. But other than that, I think the Cowboys had an all right offseason. I think that the breakup between Dez and the Cowboys was pretty intimate. I think it was going to happen, and I think it's good that it happened now. And I think now this is where the Cowboys, they decide, are we going to be able to get it done being run heavy, or can we be 13-3 running the ball, 70% of the game, or, are we going to become more balanced and we need somebody other than Dak? But I don't know. I feel like there's people feel two different ways. Some people feel like Dak is a good quarterback and there's no issue with Dak, and I totally understand if you feel that way because he hasn't necessarily done anything to put him in that position. But for me, there's a reason Dak wasn't drafted till the 4th round when he got drafted. There's a reason why there was a lot of quarterbacks picked above him, and I think that that's going to eventually show. And I'm just not. I just don't. When I think of the Dallas Cowboys, I don't look at Dak Prescott being the guy that's going to get it done for them. I look at Dak as a guy that is is a lot of hope. He's showing a lot of hope for a Cowboys nation that to me doesn't need someone like that. They already have a lot of hope with their run game. And so my thing is bring a veteran quarterback in here. I thought bringing Alex Smith would have been a good idea. And my biggest thing is that I just want to say I don't think Dak Prescott is a bad quarterback. But do I want him managing? Do I want him being the quarterback of my team? No. No. He can go to the CFL for all I fucking care.
I can make them bricks